Welcome to Stretford Paddock. Today's show is brought to you by Surfshark VPN. Now more than ever, we rely on the internet, whether that's streaming shows, streaming podcasts, speaking with loved ones, or of course, watching the football. Now more than ever, with our rapidly growing digital footprint, security is a huge concern. Thankfully though, Surfshark have got you covered because Surfshark VPN have got access to servers in loads of different countries, which means that you can change your virtual location to a place where the sport might be free to air, or there are different broadcasting rights, or even just being able to log in to your services from back home if you're abroad. Surfshark VPN also encrypts your online connection, making sure that all of your activities, including streaming matches, remains private and secure. And even if you're not just streaming football, whether it's the latest Netflix show or something on Amazon that you've been wanting to watch, you can watch it no matter where you are. And also, there's plenty of region exclusive stuff that you can get access to by changing your digital location. And by connecting to the optimized servers provided by Surfshark VPN, you may actually get faster streaming speeds and reduced buffering, so you're not going to be waiting ages to see if that last minute shot actually went in. Overall, Surfshark VPN offers you the best flexibility, security, and accessibility to all the streaming and shows you could possibly want, making it the best choice for streaming. And currently Surfshark have a phenomenal deal on. Using the code Paddock, which is easy to remember, you get 4 extra months for free and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Again, 4 extra months for free and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Go and check out the link in the description. And thank you once again to Surfshark for sponsoring the show. Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. This is the Paddock Podcast. My name is Joe, that is Jay, that is Ronaldo. And today we are talking about Manchester United transfers. Specifically, are we running out of options? Because it looks like over the weekend, Arsenal have stepped up and almost completed the deal for Victor Gyokeres. Victor Osimhen, another one, that deal seems to be completely dead in the water. It seems like United are approaching players. I mean, and Mbeumo still hasn't happened, although we still think it will. Some of the options that United have had over the window are being dwindled down, whittled away, and we may be left feeding on scraps by the end of the window because we can't sell players. But before we get into all that, what's going on, how we deal with it, and how we still have a successful window. Jay, how are you?
I'm alright, man. I'm just bored. Not of listening to you. I love listening to you. I'm bald. I'm bored.
I'm alright, I'm just bald.
Yeah, I'm just bald. It's getting to me. Like, I get it.
Didn't know whether it was a cup.
But we're just, it's just the same old at the minute. We need something to happen. Sell someone or buy someone. Just do something.
Well, we're struggling, aren't
some
we?
transfer dopamine.
Yeah.
How are you, Ronnie?
Because it would be generally frustrating anyway if you're just like a United fan in general. But when you're actually every day making content about it, it's a bit difficult, isn't it? When it's so slow. But I'm all right. I'm just a little bit concerned now. I think because it's dawned on me that pre-season starts today. We've only had Cunha come in as an arrival, which probably was pretty much sewn up before the window even started. Yeah. And I think the major issue isn't even about us being linked to players and signing them. It's more the players that we need to get rid of. It's about how swiftly we can. Yeah. And that seems to be a massive stumbling block, especially when that seems to be what is needed to then buy players. Yeah,
I mean, there was some reports, weren't there, that Amorim's not particularly happy with the speed at which things have happened, ins and outs. Obviously, you mentioned it there, Ronnie. Let's start with this Gyokeres stuff, because I know that we were never, there was never that kind of United have made a bid and this is going back and forth, and we never really got to a point where we thought we were going to sign him. But he was certainly one of the names on the list, and he had that sort of intangible of he's played for this manager before. You can't, I suppose it is tangible, but you can't replicate that unless it's happened. It always felt as though he could be one of the players we sign. And Arsenal, for a long time, looked like they're going for Benjamin Sesko. He looked like their sort of number one target. Now that seems to have flipped. Romano basically saying, here we go soon on Gyokeres. That deal looks like it's going to be done. You were a fan of Gyokeres, Jay. You were always one that thought, let's get him in if we can. Does it bother you? Not necessarily losing him to Arsenal, but it's a name that is off the list. We can't get him now if he does go there.
No, I never thought like it was likely to happen. Right. And even when I said I'd have him at United, of course I would. He scored 52 goals last season. I didn't quite share some of the reservations that Maka and Ronnie had, because I'm a simple person. It was like, he scores loads of goals, we need goals, just get him in, he's better than what we've got, and a lot better than what we've got, I thought, anyway. but it didn't look like there was much movement, considering that even when it was a sort of discounted buyout clause, this argument going on between him and the club, whether it was 60 million or 68 million, well, we haven't got either. So unless we start selling a load of players, then we've still not got the Mbumo deal over the line. Apparently we're haggling over £2.5 million, so we're not just going to magic 60 million quid on top of that. So I didn't feel like it was likely. I thought the only way it'd happen is if Arsenal didn't get him, they got Sesko. No one else came in for him. I think Juve would like link with him slightly, and it got to like towards deadline day, and Sport were like, well, we need to get rid of him. He don't want to be here. We'll take 40 odd million or whatever. Never felt like it was going to happen, but I would have had him. I'm not going to lose too much sleep over the fact he's gone to Arsenal. Arsenal need a striker. If he does a job for them, it's massively improved them. But my main issue at the minute with Manchester United is just this Mbumo deal, man. Just getting that done. That's what's stressing me out, because I know it's still early days in the transfer window, but we put our first bid in like a month ago. And other clubs are buying players. Liverpool have gone turbo. City have gone turbo, brought in likes of, is it Shirky and Nori and
Rangers.
Thank you. We're hearing that Arsenal might even be getting, is it Madueke from Chelsea. Chelsea will do lots of bits, they always do. Other clubs are going to make you move. Spurs have just got a new manager, they're not just going to not buy anyone. They're talking about getting Kudus, who's a very good player.
Yeah.
So United are in danger of going into this the next season sort of further behind our rivals than we were last season, and that was bad enough.
When I've said that, though, the argument which I do semi-agree with, that people have said to me, is when you're looking at the likes of Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool and City, there are rivals on the face of it, but are they actually right now in terms of the positions of our club and theirs? And that we should be more looking at Spurs,
That's a shout.
Newcastle,
fair enough,
Villa, and those are three teams that have pretty much done nothing in the window. So there's that element of it. Obviously,
I do get that argument, to be fair to you, because
I think if they were doing it, it'd be extra concern. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you are like.
But the only issue is obviously Newcastle and Villa. We've not gone into the window at the same starting point as them, because we were much worse than those teams. Obviously, Spurs won the Europa League and they finished lower than us in the league.
They were as bad as us.
They were as bad as us, but they also had a lot worse injury luck throughout the season than we did. I think they barely had any of their players available for large spells, and obviously that contributed.
Have they got a new manager yet?
Yeah. Thomas Frank,
of course.
Yeah.
Sorry,
so
he went from being cool to looking like a dentist in the change of a polo shirt, didn't he?
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're like, oh, he's boring now. He's a loser. Isn't it weird that Tottenham can do that to you? Anyway, sorry, carry on.
So he can, innit? It's a bit.
He's there in the polo shirt. And you're like, he's crap. And I've always rated Thomas Frank. I've always thought he was good.
It was like that.
Just showed me that button. I was like,
Graham Potter
shit.
when he went to Chelsea.
Yeah.
And overnight he just looked like
shit.
Yeah, he just looked horrible.
I gotta say, you look like shit.
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
Yeah.
He looked like he just climbed out of a skip.
Weird that. Yeah. I would even go one step further on that point, Ronaldo, personally. I don't even think of it as like catching that team and that team and that team and that team. I just think of it as getting 65 points, 70 points, 80 points, 85 points. I think they're the brackets for me. Because when we finished third under Ten Hag, I know we had a good team, but I think a lot of people wouldn't have said we had the third best team in the league. Or I think Chelsea at the minute, it's hard to really evaluate their team because they've got so many players. But like they finished very high up and maybe don't have the best squad or whatever. I think it's more just like, is this team capable of scoring enough goals to get this amount of points? I do think Cunha helps a lot. And I think that sometimes one player or two players, if we get Mbumo in, can help a disproportionate amount to another two players for different teams. Like Arsenal, yes, they will get more goals with Gyokeres, and he could be the difference in those final big moments in big games. But they've already got 90 points, or whatever it was, 88 points, what it was 2 seasons ago. They've already have a squad that is capable of getting a league title winning number of points. He's not going to give him another 20. Even if he could score 30 league goals next season, Arsenal aren't getting 115 points. So the certain metrics, and depending on where you are, certain players can bring in big jumps. Whereas even the 50 goals of Haaland, he took them from a Champions League final to winning it. Yes, it got them the treble, but it didn't get them 50 more points than the Centurions. It didn't get them, battering everyone way more. It just got little bits here and there, and individually he had a great season. I think someone like Cunha and Mbeumo can actually make a massive difference to United, where a Haaland or a Gyokeres at Arsenal might get you 8 more points. At the top end, they count so much more. We can go from, what did we get last season? 45 points? 42 points. I think we could easily go up into the 60s with just 2 players, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, because are you arguing just because the bar's lower?
The bar's lower, but also I think that our weaknesses are so concentrated and problematic. We don't score enough goals, and our players aren't good.
Are they concentrated?
I think they are.
I think there's numerous issues. I think the main one was obviously scoring goals.
Yeah.
But then defensively we were okay at times, but still not great. And I think the midfield area is still like a huge problem. And I think obviously you can't fix everything in one window. I do get that. I think there are more market opportunities for some midfielders maybe, but I think we need to sell players first. But you go into next season, you add goals to it. That's gonna, by default, it's gonna win you 10 more points, 10, 15 more points.
Yeah.
But I think for that next step, you also got to get the engine room right, and I don't think it is.
I'm not saying, by the way, that we don't have those. I agree. We need a new midfield, or a new midfielder at least. Probably a new goalkeeper. Probably another wing back. But I'm saying I think the problems that will take us from 45 points to 65 points aren't that massive. Like I think that 20-point gap is far more closable with a couple of signings for us than the 20-point gap.
It's a big jump.
Well, how many did we?
65 points in this league nowadays.
Was it 45 in the end?
That would get you top
win
5,
against Villa take us to 45.
So 65 points would get you 7th this season.
Right.
Yeah.
And United, let's have a look at last season. So not the season just gone, 23-24, got 60 points. The season before that, Ten Hag's first season, we got a 75.
What did we get last season?
The one just gone?
Yeah.
I think it was 40... Let me just double check. 42, was it? Yeah, 42.
42.
So I think we can go from 42 to 65 with 2 good signings, is what I'm saying. Whereas adding 20 points when you've already got 66 is a lot harder. I don't think of it as catching teams. I think of it as catching points, if you know what I mean.
Because you look at those players you brought in,
yeah,
and straight away you think, look at some of the results we had. If we brought in, Mbeumo and Cunha, could we beat Palace? Could we beat West Ham? Could we beat Bournemouth? Could we beat Brighton? Could we beat, I don't know who the fuck else there was at Old Trafford? But I'm just thinking about Old Trafford.
Yeah,
just those ones. Just those games.
Start,
you think I'd fancy us for it. I think it can make a difference in that respect. I understand where you're coming from. Yeah. I just feel like there's a lack of match winners at United, and Cunha's a match winner. And if you brought in Mbeumo as well, that's 2 more match winners. That's what we need, because I just feel like it's too easy for teams against United. Yeah. It's like stop Bruno and maybe Ahmad if he's playing, and then your job's done. Do you know what I mean? That's it. Yeah. It's like that's what annoys me about, especially at home, because obviously I go to home games rather than away ones. But the defeats at home is just our teams don't get out of second gear and beat us, and you're like, how's that happened? It's just not good enough. So if we can get Mbeumo in, and it looks like we will, then that does make a big difference in some of those games. But I still feel like when we go up against an Arsenal or a City, I know we beat City and Arsenal in the Cup and City in the league, but let's be honest, if we go up against them teams, we still might be way off it. Yeah, and that's the gap that has to be bridged over the next 3 years, isn't it? Yeah. So we'll do it sort of incrementally. And we've got a couple of super chats, and a lot of people sort of weighing in on this. Parag says, we really have become a mid-tier club, haven't we? We'll see. I don't think it's happened on purpose. I do think that there's been a lot of mistakes, but I think most of the way the people who have run United have tried to run it is to keep us up there. And I think we've gone for big names, big players. I think the problem is the people who were trying were shit. Like I honestly think Ed Woodward thinks he did. I think he did the best he could, but he was just completely the wrong person for doing it. He went. I bet he would say, I got Pogba, I got Di Maria, Sanchez. I got these guys, I got Sanchez, I got all of them. Why didn't it work? But you should never have been there. Yeah. You know, it's like me getting in an F1 car going, can't believe I finished last. I tried really hard. Well, yeah, of course I finished last. Yeah, of course I finished last because I'm shit. But I do think that everyone is trying to do the best they can to a certain degree. But now we just need people in there who actually, their best is actually good enough. Because that's the thing we haven't had. I don't think John Murtaugh was necessarily trying to hurt Man United.
but it amounted to that because he was out of his depth. Yeah, exactly.
And I think that Woodwardian culture that was
Woodwardian culture, which is fantastic.
In the transfer market of the big names and a lot of short-termism type of signings, like the Cavani's, etc. Even the ones like Ibra, even the ones that do well, it's still short-lived, and then you start again having spent a lot of money on their wages and the cost. So it's like a cycle, and then eventually when you get it wrong, it becomes even more costly. Yeah. Whereas United have never really gone down the route of trying to like raise the floor of the team a little bit, have a little bit of cleverer, smarter, more long-term signings, go a little bit younger. And because the fan base over the past 10 years have become used to that, when we've kind of pivoted towards that, it's we don't want young projects again, we don't want young players again, we need to buy the short thing.
Top names.
Do you know what I mean? And which is funny because what I find funny anyway is there's a lot of comparisons made with the managers we bring in the time that you should have with, Arteta got this many years and this much time, and look at how far they've come and the rebuild that they've had. But everyone talks about the managerial time that he had, but no one talks about the way they did it in terms of their recruitment. They didn't go for big names straight away. They were quite smart in the market. They obviously didn't go super cheap, but I think they went quite young. I think last year did they have the youngest average team in the league?
One of.
I think it was. So they went young, but they went young and invested pretty well. Yeah. Obviously they had academy graduates like Bukayo Saka, even Martinelli was young when he bought him, but he came for the academy as such. And then obviously Lewis Skelly and Wanyeri, and he invested in Odegaard, I guess, but he only costed them 40 million.
Yeah.
So I think they set a bit of a base there. They raised the floor slowly. I think they got Saliba back off on loan from, I'm not sure where in France exactly he was, and then he turned into a superstar. I think they spent like 30 million on Gabriel. They just made clever signings, and then they went incremental with it. And then obviously when they've had more success, they went big with the likes of obviously Declan Rice, and obviously they've gone for Zubamendi now. I think they went for Gabriel Jesus, and I think that's how you should do things, innit? Because everyone likes to talk about the manager got time, but maybe you could take a leaf out of Arsenal's book a little bit and how they did the recruitment initially. I know they've not won things, but at least they've gone from where we are now, or where we have been a lot in terms of finishing 8th, bit of a banter club, and now they're back up there challenging for the best and the biggest trophies. I know they haven't won anything yet, but even still, I wouldn't mind being in Champions League semi-finals or being in
second, do you know what I mean? 3 years in a row.
Yes.
Which again, there's no trophy for that. But if you look at the odds of a team being successful over a longer period, that's far more sustainable than second, 6th, second, 8th, 3rd, 15th, or 8th, 5th. You know what I mean? Like we're just absolute pinball. Bringing a 37-year-old, he did all right, and then he's got to go 35-year-old, 34-year-old. Like a lot of our biggest most expensive players. We've got a video coming out about this tomorrow. But in 21-22, when United had, I think, the highest wage bill we've ever had, it was like £4.5 million a week. Our highest paid players were Ronaldo, Cavani, De Gea, Varane, and Rashford, I think. And all but Rashford basically were 28 or over. And it's like, some of these players literally will be retired in 2 years, let alone still here winning trophies for us. Like, you can't set up a team that is trying to win that first title in 10 years by filling it with players over 30 or over 28. It's just, it doesn't make sense.
I missed out, obviously, and one of their big signings was Havertz as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, people hit and miss about how he's gone, but if you look at his goals and assists over the past few years, he's actually up there with any forward in the league, which is weird because obviously he misses quite a lot of chances. But it's not like they didn't spend money. That's not what I'm saying. Yeah. But I think they had their strategy was a little bit smarter and a little bit more patient.
When they went big on Declan Rice, it made sense. Do you know what I mean?
Did they go years as well with not spending, and the excuse was because they were paying off the stadium?
Back in the late noughties.
Yeah.
Because like they didn't buy a lot of players, and also a lot of players left.
Yeah.
Like obviously we had Van Persie off him, Nasri left, Ashley Cole left, Clichy left. They're losing players, all Adebayor, and it was always like they wouldn't renew for big money. They had this sort of weird contract rule they had, and they wouldn't spend huge amounts of money. And it was all about they were paying off that stadium. They wanted to do it the right way. And you know, you can make your own mind up about that. I'm not particularly bothered. But certainly, more recently, it's made sense what they've done. Whereas with us, it's like you're saying, Joe, it hasn't on the surface. You go, oh yeah, is Pogba a good player? Is Lukaku a good player? Is Di Maria a good player? Is Alexis Sanchez a good player? You could argue, yes, they all are, but what was the plan? How's it sustainable? Where did they fit in? Does the manager want them? You're buying players at times.
Will the next manager want him?
Will the next manager?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, even you look at Fred, and I like Fred, but we bought him. The manager didn't want him, and we know he didn't want him because he said so.
Have you scouted the younger Di Maria in the market for when he leaves?
That's what Ratcliffe said. Didn't he? He wants the next.
Rather than when he leaves.
Yeah.
He said, Ratcliffe said, didn't he? I don't want Mbappe. I want the next Mbappe, which is obviously spectacularly ambitious, but I get the sentiment behind it, regardless whether you like him or not.
Yeah. We've got a few more super chats as well, and I want to talk about Osimhen a little bit before we look at some of the other stuff. Bembe says, Elanga, Madueke and Kudus have made Brentford think about the Mbumo price, all going for 50 plus million, so Brentford want more. Does it surprise you a little bit, the Elanga? Let's stick with Elanga for clarity's sake, and also he's got the United link. 55 million quid he's going to Newcastle for. For me, that feels like a lot. That feels like a lot of money, because I've seen Anthony Elanga in person on TV. Every single game he ever played for Man United, I've seen it in some description. And I think he's a good player, and I think he's improved, of course, and I know his assist numbers are very good. What is it, 20-odd assists in the last 2 seasons? He doesn't strike me as a £55 million player.
How old is he? 23, 24?
He's got to be
23.
23. There you go.
I think Newcastle are banking on an explosion from him.
Okay.
And obviously Elanga was very rough around the edges technically. He wasn't quite a United player when he was here, and he's obviously gone and improved, and he's thriving in a system that probably suits him a little bit, which is mostly defending and counter-attack ability to use like his legs and his athleticism.
Which he has,
and his work rate.
World-class at that.
He suits Newcastle and Eddie Howe and that team down to the ground. He's like, you see the numbers that Murphy put up last year for him. Well, Elanga's basically a
Murphy. Jacob Murphy.
He annoys me, Jacob.
He's like a much better version. So then and I think they see it.
He's 7 years younger.
Yeah, 7 years younger, and they see it as that. And with Elanga, at the age of 23, and the kind of work ethic he looks and the attitude that he has. Yeah. He could get even better. I think they're banking on it where like he goes there and he explodes because his numbers have been very good.
It's like what you're saying, for them, it works for them. That's the big thing. Yeah. Like, would Elanga coming back to United?
Still too much though. 55.
I don't think it would. But I think at Newcastle I can understand it.
I also think stick Elanga at Man City and it doesn't work. Yeah. I think there are a few teams in the league or certain play styles that suit him. I think Elanga would look great in the Bundesliga, for instance. I think where you tend to get a bit more spacing behind. I think Newcastle is probably the best team that really suits him. I think it's the perfect move for him. If he's
most physical team in the league, isn't it?
Very physical, relies on athleticism, hard work, but also they manufacture these sort of mini counter-attacks really well by being aggressive, but they're not afraid to let you attack them as well. They do a bit of everything, but I think they're not a team typically that plays slow football high up the pitch, where you have a lot of the ball in tight areas, which Elanga isn't as good at. They're a team that manufactures and creates space in the final third, and runners thrive at Newcastle, and he's absolutely one of the best at that. So
bang on, Joe, because it's not always when you counter attacking in transition, people always think it's just like when you defend deep and then break on a team. It's just even if you win the ball back in the final third and spring forward, that's still a transition. Do you know what I mean? And Newcastle are good at making those as well. I think their recruitment has been pretty good. Over the past few years, and I think they see it as Elanga is perfect for them in terms of the way they play, and they're banking on he's been improving steadily, and his numbers in the Premier League the past couple of years have been really good. Yeah. And they think at 23 years old, he's already got the athletic base, and he's a great lad, got a great attitude, works hard. They think he could boom again, because obviously that aspect does go a lot into a player's value. It's not even just what they do on the pitch or their physical traits. Sometimes it's their personality and how they are.
He always seemed sensible, intelligent, kind of chilled out guy, didn't he? I don't obviously I'm not his mate. I don't know. He could be anything you want off the pitch, but when you see him in interviews, when you see him at United, he seemed pretty down to earth. Not I don't know. Do you know him at all? Do you know anyone?
I don't know. I don't know him at all. But I've just what I've heard.
Yeah.
That he's very hard working.
With him, RH, and he said like good things about him, and obviously the fact that he was working with him speaks volumes. Yeah. Getting that extra coaching in and all that sort of stuff. So I agree.
He's really desperate.
Agree. Sorry.
Yeah.
Apparently, he's like really desperate to improve. He's that type of guy, isn't it?
I agree with what you said. I just think that it's one of those where it makes sense for them, and not for us. And also, Elanga at United, we did our best to ruin him.
Yeah, I actually don't think that he's going to put the price of Mbeumo up personally, because Newcastle bid 50 million quid for him in January, that was turned down. So I think that there's been a sort of accepted rough price that he's going to cost for 6 months before we even approach Brentford for Mbeumo. I don't think they're going to forget that. You just got to hope that it's an extra 10 million on top of what they're paying for him, which might be, that might be enough. He's 3 years older. It's another 10 million. I don't think Brentford are getting cold feet personally.
They've 100% mentioned it though.
Do you think?
In recent negotiations, they would have seen that bid and been like, Forest have turned down 55 million for Elanga.
Yeah.
We think Mbeumo's this and that much better in his peak years. You need to give us more. And I think us getting Cunha for release cost 62.5 million, they've always used that as a base mark because they just think Mbeumo's either a better player at that level.
Yeah.
Whether they believe it or not is one thing. It's just clever negotiation tactics anyway.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
FPL Mickle, if we get Osimhen, I'm ready to meet Joe behind an Asda to celebrate.
Did you have that?
I won't be having that, no, but you can meet one of my representatives. Let's talk about Osimhen then, because there was reports over the weekend again that United approached, potentially offered some kind of outlines of a deal, but he wasn't willing to lower his wages, which is what we would want. Does that worry you? That not that you'd expect players to give all their money away to play for this fucking terrible Man United team, but that we either can't attract players, or we don't have the money, or we don't want to have the money for someone like Victor Osimhen. Do you think we can do it without players
it's
like
deflating, but I kind of expected it.
Yeah.
I didn't think we would get Victor Osimhen this window because of the wages, because of that. And obviously, sometimes you might get around wages if you've got certain guarantees, like you're absolutely flying and you're going to play in the Champions League and you're going to be challenging for titles. You might think, okay, it's worth it. But when you just finished 15th and you're sort of in this period where there's a lot of uncertainty around Manchester United, isn't there? How secure is Ruben Amorim's job if we have a bad start? What is happening with the club at all? It just seems like there's still a bit of a cloud hanging over us. So I can understand why a player wouldn't want to take a wage cut to come to Manchester United. And the old Osimhen thing, it feels more fan-driven to me. Certain transfers feel like the fans are keen on it and the fans are pushing for it. I understand why, because I think Victor Osimhen would be a fantastic signing. But I don't see a lot where a journalist who I respect or trust is saying this is happening.
No.
I've not seen that at all from anyone. I've seen journalists say he'd be a good fit. We had Carl Anker sat there who said, sort of waxed lyrical about Victor Osimhen, how great he is and how much United fans love him and how well he do and how he could score these great goals and he fit in the system and all the rest of it. But he didn't say it's happening.
No.
So it just doesn't. It doesn't sort of. I don't get annoyed or deflated or I don't get too annoyed with things like that, because I never got into the place where I thought, this is something is going to happen because of those wages. I always felt it was difficult, because remember when we linked with him at Napoli? Did Napoli pay like 80 million for him?
I think it was 60 that could go up to 80.
Yeah,
but they went big.
They were
young
big, yeah.
on him.
Wasn't he
what
like the most expensive
was.
African player ever? Or
Yeah,
something at the
and
time?
he was playing. Where was he playing at the time? Lille.
Yeah.
And they spent a lot of money. He was 22, I think. I remember seeing that movie and thinking, fucking hell,
because that made me think, when we were linked with him, then you thought, well, we've got the one at least get the money back.
Yeah.
And it was at a time when United didn't seem to have that much money, which is where we're at now.
It's worked out.
So I don't know. With Osimhen, it feels like it's a little bit of a pipe dream.
Yeah.
And I love it
do you know
to
what?
happen, but I just don't think it will.
Just from enjoying him as a footballer perspective, it would be a real shame for me for him and his career to never play for a European giant. And I don't mean that as disrespect to Napoli or Galatasaray or anyone, but he's a player of a quality where he should be challenging for Champions Leagues and impressing in the Champions League. You feel like I don't know, he's such a fan favourite wherever he goes, and he's such a good goal scorer.
He's got time.
I know he has, but if this next move is to Saudi or to Galatasaray permanently or whatever, then that time, next thing you know, by the end of his contract, he's in his 30s, and then maybe that time does start to. I just think
if he wanted to go Saudi, he would have gone, because
he
rejected it early in the window, didn't he?
And again, that's what I'm saying. Hopefully we don't see another round of that, and he goes there. And I just think, I don't know, I like him, and I like him as a character, and I like him as a player. I hope that whether it's us or not, it'd be good to see him like at Real Madrid, or do you know what I mean, smashing goals in for Bayern Munich or something, just winning big games in the Champions League nights, because we're not really seeing that from him yet. That's the one thing that's missing.
He knows though, Champions League's overrated. No one cares about Champions League.
If there was any chance for Osimhen, I'd snap your hand off.
Yeah.
I think he'd score goals for anyone and everyone.
Yeah.
I think he's just that type of player.
Yeah.
And
he's got like a willpower that he plays with.
He's probably
he's just going to get a goal at some point.
Probably the best header of the ball out of all strikers in world football as well.
So good, on it. It's just one of those that you can't get too carried away with the idea because it doesn't feel like it's realistic, unfortunately. You never know. If we sell all the players that we've got on our transfer list and make some sort of deal there, who knows? Yeah, we can dream.
We've got a couple more super chats, and then I want to talk more about some options who aren't Osimhen and Gyokeres, because it looks like they're completely off the table. Tommy McCartney says, if Forest can jump up 10 spots in the table in a year, I don't see why we can't. Feel it's been underrated what adding goals to this team will do. My point exactly, and I think largely we all sort of agree on that.
We didn't unacknowledge it, we just said.
Yeah. Will Hesketh says, when you're having this scrap, Joe, that's not how it works. It happens or it doesn't happen, and it's an ongoing thing. It's not like one scrap. It's if we're behind Asda, then it's happening. If not, then it's not. Let's say Gyokeres is off the table. Let's say Osimhen's off the table. A lot of people in the comments, and like, I don't know if this is a worry or not, but people are talking your Jamie Vardy's, your Danny Welbeck's, your
Danny Welbeck I love, by the way.
Danny Welbeck's
pulling my face with Danny Welbeck.
Premier League striker with a, I would guess, Hoyland understudy. How much does the idea of that kind of transfer excite you?
Within reason, Jamie Vardy's 37 now. I don't see that being a feasible option, to be honest with you. I just can't see it. I think he scored, was it 7 Premier League goals last season? I think a lot of them came at the beginning of the season. So it's not terrible numbers. It's better than I think most of our strikers did, but I just don't think it'd be helpful.
Chuck Calvert-Lewin into that conversation as well then. I know they're not the same age, but in terms of, lesser wanted Premier players.
I'm the same. Sorry, I'll let
Ronnie, go on. We've not really spoken about Calvert-Lewin.
No, Calvert-Lewin, he's not been good for a while. I don't think United's really a place to go and re-find your form after being...
It's the opposite.
It's the opposite.
You come here with great form and shit.
We get it out of you.
Yeah.
And when I say get it out of you, I mean literally, it leaves you.
It leaves you. Knock it out of you.
And I've had enough of players that have poor availability and injury issues as well. So and they're things that don't just go away, especially when a lot of them are muscle injuries. I think he's just a walking hazard as a signing option, even as a free on a free. Yeah. Personally,
that's another thing as well, right? People go, yeah, but on a free. But if they're not good enough, the fact they cost now doesn't help.
No.
Like if someone is not going to be good enough for Manchester United, then just because we didn't pay for them doesn't help us. Like if you've got a player there who's starting for Manchester United and isn't doing the job you need him to do, then his price tag is pretty irrelevant.
Yeah.
And I just don't see Calvert-Lewin being that guy. Listen, if he signs, I'll get behind him. I'll get behind all Manchester United players. But right now, I don't think it's a good move.
No.
Don't at all. And like Ronnie said, he went, was it last 24 games without a goal, or 1 goal, sorry, in his last 24 Premier League games, I think it is. That's not the kind of form that makes you think, oh yeah, let's get him.
Then there's that kind of third bracket of strikers.
Go on.
Where they're not at the peak of their powers, but they have consistently scored some goals season in, season out, and maybe they're never going to be world class, but you kind of guaranteed a little bit of something. The likes of Vlahovic, the likes of Ollie Watkins, not necessarily the perfect age profile, not an Osimhen or Gyokeres in terms of productivity, but they've consistently been getting double digits, 15, 16, 18, 20 goals a season for years, but you're still probably going to have to pay 50, 60 million for him. What do you make of those types of players, and do you think we're going to end up with one of them?
I don't see it.
Do you not?
Unless it's sales dependent, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just, to me, the longer the window goes on, the more likely it seems to me that, because we're not that far, before you know it won't be that far off the season starting. And I think we'll probably go into it with Cunha and Bumo, and I think a striker will just have to be by chance, or it's got to be some sort of market opportunity that might underwhelm everyone. And I think that's just unfortunately the way it's going to probably look like, because obviously Gyokeres looks like he's on his way to Arsenal.
Yeah.
Osimhen, I think, wants Champions League football, and probably we can't offer him the wages that he probably wants. Then elsewhere you've got Sesko, which Leipzig are holding every team, well, holding Arsenal especially, to ransom over. I think it's €90 million.
Too much.
Which is too much for what he is. Right now, he's still a bit raw. And then you're looking around it, you look at Samu from Porto, and he's still not the finished product as well. Outside of that, I don't know. But I think people even suggesting Nicholas Jackson, and you know, do you know what I mean?
That'd be so good.
He's better than Højlund, but
yeah, he is.
But it's still not. I've got a thing about cast-offs from teams in and around us or fellow rivals anyway. So I think the options are quite slim. That's what I think.
You're sounding a little bit dejected.
I am.
You sound like you've not given up, but you sound like you're losing optimism that United are going to sign a striker.
I think Osimhen was the one for me, and outside of that, I'm pretty underwhelmed by any of the other options.
Do you think that, Jay, maybe that there is a case to be made that yes, there is. We could get Watkins, we could get Vlahovic, we could, burst the bank and get Osimhen maybe, but let's say that he doesn't fit within the structure, that can't happen. There's a Welbeck available, there's a, whoever it may be. There are people available, but would you accept it if United kind of indicated that none of them are the right person? Kind of the conclusion Ronaldo's come to a little bit, where you go, yes, we could get him, we could get Jackson, but actually, for the project we have, we want a team that can win the league in 3 years' time, and buying any of those players I've just mentioned doesn't actually help us achieve that. We're not going to do it. Would you accept that, or do you think there has to be value in the market somewhere?
I think there's got to be some value somewhere. And that's like, that's your job to find players for Manchester United and find them to fit. And also this idea that, okay, we want to win the league in 3 years or whatever. I get that. But in the meantime, it's not like we're just going to take a break and come back in 3 years and then win the league. You still have to win football matches week in, week out. You still have to get back into the Champions League to get that money that's going to help you win the league. Yeah. So you can't do that by just giving up. Or go, we'll bring in Cunha, maybe we'll get on Boomer, and then that's almost job done. We'll still be a bit crap, but that's not too bad.
Watkins, isn't it?
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, get someone in who can do a job for the next season or two, and who knows what's going to happen with Cheeto. Maybe in 2 or 3 years' time, he's the player that he threatens to be. Maybe in 2 or 3 years' time, you've got the money to go out there and spend 80 million quid on a guaranteed goal scorer. Yeah. Who knows? But you have to do things for short term. When Fergie came in, right, Fergie made some signings that were very long term, like Gary Pallister, for example, was a signing. Dennis Irwin was a signing. Peter Schmeichel, when he came in, these were signings you looked at and go, they're going to be here for the next 5, 6, 7 years. He also brought in players who were a little bit more short term. He brought in players that were like coming towards the end of the career. Some of them worked out, some didn't. Players like Viv Anderson, players like that with a bit of experience, where it's just like, I need a player for the here and now who can do a job for me. And some of them did a good job, others didn't quite, but it helps us move forward in a way because it helps us with trophies or move up to whatever to get to the place where eventually you might even go, right, I can use him for a couple of seasons, then I move him on. Yeah. But in those couple of seasons, other young players have come through, the likes of, Ryan Giggs or whoever's come through. Yeah. So I don't need Danny Wallace anymore because I've got Ryan Giggs here now. I don't need, whoever because I've got another player that's coming through the ranks. But for the here and now, I do need to improve this team immediately. And I think that's where United are at. I think we do need long-term players, and I get all that. But also, you can't just go, well, our priority is, 27, 28 season. Yeah. We're not buying anyone who's 29. Come on. We might have to.
So you think make the shape correct, and then you can actually make the quality better afterwards. Yeah. So get a system of players that suits Amorim, and then you can improve those individual pieces when the right people come up.
Yeah, because and also if you can be counterproductive. Let's say, I'll use Cheeto as an example. Let's say we don't buy a striker. Let's say Højlund carries on just having a bit of a nightmare, which he has done. Let's say Xerxes is injured. So you're reliant on Cheeto, who's 17 years old, and you just run him into the ground and ruin him. Yeah. And then it's like, well, he might have been a good player.
And then he'll probably go to Forest and sell to Newcastle for 60 million in a few years. Yeah.
Let's try and have some decent options. Yeah. And also, there's a part of me that feels, what is the point in getting Cunha, getting Mbumo, and giving up? Like, come on, man. Let's just get another player in there that could actually make this front three mint.
There's an interesting update from Fabrizio Romano that
God, if this is United pursuing Brian Mbumo, talks are ongoing.
Yeah, his report earlier,
I'm going to chuck your laptop through the camera.
He said Brian Mbumo to United still on.
Yeah.
Well,
shut up.
You clearly don't trust my knowledge.
It's not you I don't trust. It's
because
him.
I've declared it to be interesting.
Right. Okay.
So,
all right. Sorry.
Take that box. This is very much part of someone we've been discussing, Victor Osimhen. Nothing to do with Man United directly, but Galatasaray have sent an initial bid for Victor Osimhen for €50 million plus 5 million, while Napoli want more. Osimhen is keen to return to Galatasaray, but depends on the talks. That's the ballpark we're looking at here. 50 to 60, maybe 65 million euros for Osimhen. Let's say 70 million. Let's push it way up. That's what we're paying for Mbeumo. That is not that much money. I know obviously the wages seem to be the big deal with him. But do you not think there's a way we could make something like that work?
Because he can pay big wages in Turkey now. Isn't the tax a bit different in Turkey?
I'm not 100% sure.
The wages are massive difference, though, aren't they? Because apparently Mbeumo, if we do get him, or when we get him, he's on like 150k a week.
How can Galatasaray afford that?
Because it's a big club.
Yeah, I know it's a big club,
but their star, innit?
It's not.
There must be a lot of like.
Is it much bigger than?
To some degree, there must be some dough in Turkey.
No, it's not a big club in us, but it's a big club. They've got. Turkish teams do have a bit of money. Oh, it's different because it's outside of Europe, innit? And I think the
EU.
Yeah, I think the EU. I think the tax is a bit different as well, where they can pay big wages as well.
So they can pay it without having.
I think it's the wage, and obviously the lifestyle as a footballer in Turkey. From what I know from mates that played there,
you've said it's just unreal.
You get treated like an absolute god because
they
live and breathe football in Turkey.
That must matter to Osimhen as well because his treatment at Napoli towards the end was pretty disgusting.
Yeah, it was.
And he was getting treated like a god in Turkey. Maybe that's influencing his thinking as well.
Yeah, and also another thing with Osimhen, obviously he's been a very good player, but he doesn't stay places long. So he was at Wolfsburg for 2 years, Lille for a year-ish, Napoli he's been there for 4 years, but I think only 2.5 of those he was actually playing properly. 3 years he was playing properly, and then he's been at Galatasaray. He could do with somewhere where he feels loved and he can settle down a bit. Maybe he's looking for that, but I just feel like if they're bidding 55 million euros, fucking come on, we can do that. Surely we can do that.
That's Ugarte money, isn't it?
Yeah. That's Fred money. We spent 50 million quid on Fred.
That is Ugarte money. 50 million euros was Ugarte money.
Yeah, well, we can't sell him now.
Do you reckon they'll swap him with some of our other, give him Anthony and Sancho and that?
Probably not. I don't think so.
Do you know what I mean?
I don't think Napoli want it. They might want Garnacho though.
Well, there you go then.
Nah, but Garnacho's made it clear he wants to stay in England though. Which is him basically saying,
Chelsea, then?
I want to go to Chelsea.
We'll wait and see.
I wonder what happens
Player power's gone mad. How dare you dictate what country you want to play football in?
No, but you've got to agree personal terms, don't it?
Do you know what I mean? You go into Italy.
You want it to be like
beautiful place.
American sports, isn't it? Like
where they just
NBA and NFL.
Yeah, the player just finds out.
You've got no choice.
Yeah, you open your locker, it's empty, and literally someone behind the scenes has moved your house, wife, and kids to another state.
I saw that.
You're going to Denver.
Yeah.
on Moneyball film. I thought, is that real?
Because all the contracts.
When you go to Detroit, and he's like,
all the teams are owned by the league. So there's no it's just like, if we can trade your contract, you're gone.
So you could be in LA playing for the LA Rams.
Kids are at school,
and they've got
everything's hunky dory, loving life, and then they go.
And the way you find out is Romano going. Jay Motti has been traded to the Denver Broncos, and you're moving from LA to Colorado tomorrow.
Hang on a minute,
and you got no choice.
This is shit.
Yeah,
no disrespect to Colorado.
It's literally that. Or you might find out. It was Kevin Durant the other day, didn't he? Found out he was getting traded on stage. Just chatting to someone, and there's like a Q&A, I think, and someone just said
you've been traded to the Rockets.
You're being traded to the Rockets, and you're like, cool. Right, you moved from New York to Texas.
Was it Gus Poyet found out he'd been sacked on Match of the Day? Do you remember?
Love it. I've never seen that.
Alive,
What a time to be alive.
I think it was.
Right, let's talk about Wally of the week. Who's been an absolute Wally this week? We do it every single week, but for those who don't know, we point out someone who's done something bad, been annoying, bit of a Wally this week.
I'm trying to think. I can't. I know that we do this every week.
Can I say Ben Stokes?
Go on, you're going to a bit of a cricket angle, are you? What's up with him? What's up with Ben Stokes?
The arrogance of bowling first on a basically motorway wicket.
Yeah.
For anyone that watches England Test cricket, it was a horrible decision. So, because I haven't got a clear Wally, I'm going to go cross sports and say Ben Stokes. I'll get at least one person to agree in the comments, surely.
Yeah, I'm sure someone will agree with you there. Although I don't. My Wally of the week. I'm sick of the Club World Cup generally.
Okay.
Completely sick of it. I think someone made a good point when we were talking about Calvé from Sky, how he did his whole sort of go and play paddle, go and do this.
Yeah.
Musiala's season's over.
Yeah.
Because of a a collision in the Club World Cup, which is just bollocks. Not that I'm particularly bothered about Musiala, but I just think it's this extra. It's basically a set of friendlies where the winner gets 80 million quid. Doesn't feel right, and players are losing next season already.
How long's he out for?
Well, he's broke his leg and dislocated his ankle, so minimum 6 months.
Jesus. Yeah, because sometimes, like obviously ACL and ligament injuries can be worse.
Yeah.
A break, he could be back, but obviously, I think he broke his leg and was out pretty much the whole season.
Yeah.
Last summer, Man City.
The young kid.
In pre-season, he broke his ankle, dislocated. Oscar Bob,
yeah.
And he was pretty much out for the season, wasn't he?
So the Club World Cup once again. What's the point? Who cares? Shite.
I'll go. I can't think of anyone. The Department of Justice in America.
Go on.
What's going on with this Epstein list? Do you know what I mean? Now they're saying they're in one. I thought we were going to.
You what? What do you mean they're in one?
Yeah, they're saying now they're in one. I thought we were going to get some juicy Epstein list.
But didn't all the airline files already come out? All the flight manifests.
That's it and everything. They said there was a client list. Sorry, they said there was a client list and they knew.
But he must have a little phone book.
Well,
no, it turns out he didn't.
Do you know what I mean?
But didn't Trump say that he was going to release it?
Yeah.
And also, he's already been president once, so he should know whether it exists or not.
Yeah, he might. Depending whether you believe Elon Musk or not, he might be on it. So.
Just bollocks, innit? And also, such
all these files is we're going to release the JFK files, we're going to release the Epstein file.
Yeah.
It never happens. It doesn't. They're all in cahoots.
Yeah.
None of them want to release anything. It's just everyone gets excited and then it doesn't happen and you get a fully redacted thing that you try and make something out of and it's just shite. So yeah, the Department of Justice. That's my Wally of the week. Although I won't be saying that when I travel to America. I
was going to say, can we cut this bit out of the podcast before
I love
we
the
go to
Department of
America?
Justice. Tell you what, they do a fantastic job, them boys in blue.
Justice for justice, I say. Unbelievable. Right. Thank you very much for joining us. If you don't already, make sure you check us out on Spotify and wherever you get your podcasts. We upload all of our podcasts to audio. And if you are listening, make sure you check us out on YouTube as well. Of course, we've got everything out there and more than you get on the audio up on YouTube. So make sure you check us out across both places there. Thank you, Ronaldo. Thank you, Jay. Thank you for joining us at home. We'll see you in a bit.